right. Give a quick second for it to load up. I think we've got everybody who's going to be here in the room. That being the case, we'll call the December How Time Moves workshop to order. If we can hit a roll call, Mr. Manager, we can move our way through this today.
Jay, just give me a minute to get the live stream going.
Not a problem. There we go.
Thank you for your patience.
Not a worry at all. So I was saying for those on the live stream that we are calling our the 7:03 then that we call the December meeting to order. And if we can get a roll call, Mr. Manager, we can move right our way.
Okay, just gonna stop the share there so we can see the Hollywood squares. And as far as roll call goes this evening, Matt Castilla.
Here.
Valerie Renthaler.
Here.
Kevin Collins.
Here.
Norma Greco.
Here.
And Adam McDowell.
Here.
Paul Gamrat.
Here.
I'm sure I saw the mayor pop in. And Vice President Diane Law.
Here.
And Council President Jay Dorn.
I am still here for all that that's worth. Having said that, I appreciate everybody coming out as we start our December meeting. As always, we kind of move to one of the more important moments, which is, of course, our comments from our residents and taxpayers. And so we've moved back to the standard Zoom format as we kind of watch the magic of COVID play. Having said that, under this format, as you may recall, if you want to raise your hand, I will make sure to call upon you. If I call upon you, then you have 3 minutes. Please start by stating your name and address, and at that time, we'll be able to move through all of public comment. I do make sure to go through the raised hands first, followed by folks who may not have found the button. So I'll look for anyone whose camera's on who was unable to find the button. And then following that, anyone who's on the phone, I will also make sure that there's an opportunity for them to speak as well. That being the case, I think the first person that I see on the block here is Kathy Bordner. So Kathy, if you want to unmute yourself, feel free to speak.
Okay, are you able to hear me?
I am able to hear you.
Okay, I'm trying to share my screen, if I can do that. Alex, is that working?
I've enabled participants to share screens. And so, yeah, you should be able to see that. Here you go.
Okay. And you can see what I'm sharing?
Yes.
Okay. I am showing the link to a really neat video. Oh, my name's Kathy Bordner, and I live at 1926 Hampstead Drive. And this is the Wilkinsburg train station video. This is the link to it. You can also Google Wilkinsburg train station back on track. And the reason I'm talking about this tonight is because we often hear about how terrible the condition of the buildings on the site are. And Hillwood basically said the only way you can redevelop the site is if you demolish all of the buildings. If you watch this video, you'll see that that train station was in really horrific condition. It didn't have a roof for a long time, and yet they brought it back. And that's something that we could also see on the site. And so I'd like to encourage people to watch that video and think a little bit about that. Also, another thing that I'd like to mention is that we hear a lot, well, what would you do with the site? There's nothing else but to put something like this on the site. I disagree with that, and I actually was able to get a letter to the editor published in the Valley Mirror last week. That's the newspaper that serves the Mon Valley. If anybody would like to read that letter to the editor, you can pick up a copy of the paper, support your local journalism, and please consider buying the paper. But if they're out of them now, just email me at kathy.bordner@gmail.com, and I'd be happy to send you a copy of that editorial talking about what could be done on the site instead of destroying it and putting an Amazon distribution center on the site. And I know that the council has to factor in basically the conditional use zoning requirement, but I did want to talk about this tonight because there are other factors that should come in that you should factor in. And the community needs to understand that this narrative out there that these buildings can't be saved, nothing else can be done, is a false narrative, and that we can't do anything, that's also false. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I appreciate your comments, Kathy. Is there anybody else who would like to make a public comment? If you click on under the participants, you'll have the ability to raise hand. I want to give people an extra second. I know sometimes it takes them a minute to kind of find the space. I don't see anybody else looking to make a public comment through raising their hand. Was there anyone on the phone who was looking to make a comment today? If you unmute yourself, you can make a comment. Okay, like I said, try to give a couple extra seconds just in case people are having a hard time finding the button. But it appears that is it for today. So then I will close public comment.
It looks like Danielle has her hand up. The way it's coming across is different, Jay. If you look at Danielle Weaver's box.
No, I'm sorry. There was, I'm looking at the participants. I didn't mean to put my hand up.
Absolutely. Okay, no problem. I'll keep looking at the folks though. I was also look if there's anyone physically who wants to raise their hand who can't find the box. Brooke, was that you raising your hand? Okay, I saw a hand flash, so I'll take it if I can. Okay, as you see, I try not to jump out of public comment too quickly, so I apologize to everyone as I kind of go through and give everyone another opportunity. That being the case, though, I do not see anybody else, so we will move on past public comment. We'll move into the discussion items, beginning with everyone should, if anyone had any questions on any of the drafts that have come out, be it, we'll do three first. Any questions on any drafts that you've seen, anything that you wanted to ask of each other, I'll leave it open for council. If not, we could move on to any committee reports as well that anyone wanted to discuss, or any comments on committee report. I would update that I did speak with Wilkins Borough on the issue of, and I don't think it's in here, so just make sure before I jump too fast. Just on the general issue of combined services with regard to the police department. It is something that we will continue to talk about. We've talked about it before. I'll bring it back up with the committee. Our conversation was, again, just preliminary from one council president to the other, just to make sure that everybody's still on track, still has some interest in the conversation itself, to keep things moving along. But I have nothing else beyond that to report on that space. Anything else anyone else would like to report, whether it be via draft information?
The infrastructure committee will be having their monthly meeting this Thursday from 12 to 1 p.m. We'll be getting updates on the ongoing projects in the borough, and we'll have updates for next week's meeting.
Thank you. I would add, I've asked the police and safety committee that we're to meet regarding vaccination status And so hopefully we'll be able to get that together in time and meet with the police on the issue. Anything else on the issue? All right, let's move on to 5. Discuss setting the date for the borough to vote on the Westinghouse redevelopment project. So are we good on potential dates? How do we feel on, I think that the conversation was the 21st. Is that still the case, Alex?
Understanding that Tuesday, the 21st, I guess we just need to set the time if you want to have it at 6 p.m. or 7 p.m.
What do we think, people? 6, 7. I look to you all for this guidance.
So you better for me.
Sorry, I missed that, Diane.
Diane was saying that 6 would work, and everybody's looking at their calendars just to make sure that start time is good. And then what we'll do is we'll run an advertisement to make sure that everyone knows that, and we'll post it on the website. And we'll be using the same link that we're using tonight, so that people will just be using this regular meeting link to get into that meeting.
Okay, I assume we'll have the same Swift call and all the rest that comes along with the way that we've been trying to make sure everybody knows.
We'll do our best.
I know, we do what we can. Any other discussion on the matter?
6 is fine.
I see a Kevin head shake on 6. So 6 sounds like 6 is the time that works. All right, moving into number 6. Any additional discussion on the adoption of the budget?
Just in the budget, Jay, the finance committee has vetted this pretty well. So I think it's ready to be voted on next week.
And I think we have draft budgets online, and I'm not sure, I think we'll put the budget narrative as well online for people to look at. And of course, they're available at the Borough Building. If people want to come and inspect that, they're welcome to do that.
I would just add a comment that I haven't gotten through all the details yet, but the budget narrative was, very comprehensive, and I appreciate the finance committee and the staff's work to make all this more transparent and, easier for us all to understand and work through.
Duly noted and agreed. If I can say that. Any other comments on the budget before we move forward? This will be, of course, moved forward onto next week. All right. So this moves us then into number 7. Discuss a draft of non-union and union staff resolution.
So, Mr. President, both of these are related to the budget. The first one is just calling out the salaries so that people will be able to see those in a separate document. Sometimes the salaries can be kind of hidden in budgets when departments are together and they pull different salaries into one line item. So we wanted to do that extra step. And then number 8 also is related to the budget. It's just, we're not changing the fees. We did this year change the fees related to the lien letters and the tax. That was in July.
Yeah.
Tax cert letters. So we will update our fee schedule with those new ones that you already have. And we just like to do that annually, just to remind ourselves that of these various fees for these various services that we provide. So that 7 and 8 are very related to the budget. If there's any questions, Krista or I could answer those.
I have none. Again, 8 is known, and 7, thanks for clarification. So anybody else have any questions on those items? All right, so 9, I think we are going to kind of table a bit of that discussion. And for clarity, in terms of the idea of adopting an ordinance, it would not go, and correct me if I'm wrong, into effect for any current kind of holding members, only new members of anything that we would do anyway. Go ahead.
That's what we will discuss. So next Monday, whatever it is that you'll be voting on, they'll be very clear of when it would go into effect.
Right. And that's something that has to be discussed in executive session. which we'll have directly after this. 10, a capital improvement plan. Discussion?
The capital improvement plan is part of the draft budget narrative, so it's.
Correct. And Krista, you want to go ahead and speak?
Almost all of this is, but go ahead.
Oh, Kevin read my mind. That's exactly what I was going to say.
Almost all of this is, but I still read them as separate items if they're separate items. You know, be prepared to say that probably again. 11.
So we were asked at last month to table this and review it further with council. And Mr. Rob did review it with us. We have modified it. And the gist of it is we tried to make it much more of a policy document so that the shalls turned into mays, giving any future group of elected officials discretion to move. But the gist of the policy is to try to have the best practice of fund balance. It's always tempting to lower fund balances, but the risk is that may incur, whether it's short-term loans that we've discussed before or some sort of tax increase, because if you keep spending the fund balance, you eventually have none, and then you're kind of stuck maybe in a hard spot. So next week, you will be deciding upon that modified resolution. Is one tabled from last month, and it has been reviewed by council, and I think satisfactory with the finance committee.
Got it. Appreciate the clarification. I feel like there's gonna be a lot of lean on the borough manager for these numbers, for these items today, I see. Which brings us to the magic of number 12.
So 12 is a way for us to recognize the people who have served the community and live in the community by enabling them to get the tax credit for earned income tax. There's not much more to say, but we will approve a list that has been approved by the fire department. And for people to be on the list, they need to have qualified by performing a number of hours of service and participating in training for the department. So we just need to get that before you. It's the only way they'll be able to get the rebate is if council approves that list.
Got it.
Number 13.
You're just swinging it through. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I had a question on number 12.
Yeah, go ahead.
So is there any way, I know that we can do that directly for any of our volunteer firefighters that live in the borough, but I understand that we have some volunteer firefighters that don't live in the borough. Is there any way for us to be able to do that for the other folks? I mean, for all of our firefighters?
So the way the legislation is, and I don't know, Gavin, if you've experienced other communities, but I've experienced challenges in the past with reciprocal agreements between other communities when you have, as you know, in fact, our president and our fire chief live in other communities. The person who responded to the most calls last year lives actually in Penn Hills. So at this point, we don't have that reciprocal agreement in place, but it's something we should explore, because how do we benefit those who are serving this community? But the problem is, or I guess the issue is, they're paying their real estate and their income taxes to the place where they live. And so we need them to agree to basically credit them for the pay. So you can imagine it may not be as easy as it sounds, but it's something I think we should be able to explore. This act also allows you to credit them on real estate taxes paid to the local government. And if we want to incentivize more borough residents, particularly to volunteer, we might want to consider adding that in addition to the earned income credit that they currently get.
Thanks for that clarification, Alex. Yeah, I would say this is a good first step, but certainly, some other things we can look into, like you said, to just help recognize those folks for the great work they do, and then also hopefully, incentivize other folks that may be interested and help, just relieve any burden they might have, that can get us more firefighters and help keep our community safe.
Indeed.
Appreciate that. That brings us into number 13, which is the various, quite frankly, boards and commissions that we are always looking for volunteers for to serve on, and some need to be reappointed. Some are just open. for part of this, I think we need to look at this within the reorg space and kind of put this as part of the strategy, because there are a lot of kind of vacant spaces that we can use community members who want to be active in our community to help participate. I know that we have a very active community, and so if folks are interested in serving and helping the community, there are actually positions available that would be great to see people volunteer for. And so I think as council, I think as we come in and certainly to make the announcement for folks to look at this and see what's available and see what interests them, and step up and want to volunteer. But also I think as council to come up with strategies as we move forward into the new year to address kind of ensuring that we have the kind of participation from our community on all of the important issues. One of the interesting things to me is that probably the most important things, that we're trying to deal with, there's been vacancies on commissions for years that we didn't have people on. And so, I would just kind of plead to those of you listening, and to those of you who are talking to other folks, to say that there are in fact opportunities to actually volunteer and be part of solutions. I don't know if anybody else wanted to comment on that, but that's my only comment as far as number 13 goes.
Well, you're correct, Mr. President. At the reorg meeting, we'll have some additional things to consider as it relates to service of the new council members and the existing council members. A couple of these are officer positions like fire marshal and emergency management coordinator. A few of these, like the planning commission, zoning hearing board, there may be renominating people who are currently serving. So in the binder, the council, you want to take a look at that segment of the binder where you can see who's already serving in those positions. I know Ken had his hand up earlier that he had submitted a letter last month to appoint a new member. Currently, the tree committee, for example, is authorized to have up to 5 members. It has 3 active members. So what the tree committee is asking us to do is consider appointing a 4th person to serve that committee. And of course, as we've discussed previously, the Human Relations Commission is one that has been authorized, but hasn't been constituted with the board yet. And quite frankly, that has a lot to do with just the borough has been a little busy this past year with a really big issue, and it has consumed a lot of our time. And I will plead that that's kind of a ball that I've dropped when it comes to the Human Relations Commission, but stay tuned. We do have people who've been interested, and hopefully spring, maybe, Jay, we can.
Yeah, it's been something that has been something that I've championed for a long time. So to get it passed as an ordinance when it passed was outstanding, right? I mean, I've been pushing for a Human Relations Commission for years and years here. And then I got it passed, and then we got the giant all-consuming, project dropped in our lap that slowed everything down. So yeah, I would hope that, as sometime very soon we can get this thing up and running the way that it should be. I think there's been a few opportunities for had we had it up and running where it could have kind of been beneficial. But with the amount of time constraints that have been put on council, I think it's been very difficult to move this forward the way that I would have liked to. So yes, I think it's a realistic timing. Thank you.
I would just add, if I may, that there's also, so that you don't take all the responsibility, Mr. President, we've also had a small thing called COVID, which has obviously interrupted our ability to have meetings. So, I think that if we can manage somehow to get past this going into the next year, that there'll be quite a few people, quite a few things that we'll be looking at, maybe some new ones. But I just didn't want you to take all that responsibility on when we do have this other major public health issue.
I take the hit, but I appreciate it.
Okay.
Any other conversation on this before I move forward? All right, hearing none, we have the discussion for the advertising for the public meetings, for next year. Essentially keeping the same time, the same kind of first and second Monday. And then, when we have those issues of where the Mondays are a holiday, that we do those kind of back, the Tuesday instead. Is there any discussion, anybody, proposing anything different? Good. It's worked well. I will say, for those of you who have not, don't know the kind of full history of the meeting dates, not that long ago, council would have meetings on back-to-back Monday and Tuesday. And quite frankly, if you think about that, especially with kind of major issues, but with all issues, we would meet on a Monday for a workshop and then on a Tuesday to vote, which meant, how did you digest any information or make any kind of informed decisions, quite frankly? And so great change to make it a week apart. Also, it helps with many spouses not hating us on that week. So it hasn't. I'm a big fan. If there isn't any objection to that, I will move forward to the conversation about the deputy tax collector and the recommendation of Carol Donahue, who is the tax collector of Chalfont. So I want to kind of open this up for discussion for council. As you know, I tend not to speak first. So if no one else has comments, I will make my comments, but I will allow others on the board to speak, on the council to speak, if they have any comments they'd like to make.
Mr. President, the only thing I wanted to mention is, this is no problem this being a discussion item, but I think it would be appropriate to wait until January to actually take action to approve the appointment of a deputy tax collector. Number one, we have the current deputy tax collector's term runs to the end of the year, and secondly, I think the elected tax collector is going to be beginning a new term and will be sworn in January to start that term. So I think it's much cleaner to make that appointment, at the January meeting rather than right now. But again, certainly okay to approve it. I think council's aware that it's really the tax collector who makes the appointment subject to the approval of the municipality, and so that's where we are now at the discussion stage of that.
Right, and we understand that, and I think that you make a really good point on two levels, just to kind of put this out there for all of council as well. The first being that if there are concerns or aren't concerns, that if it is something that they're going to take office in January and we can make a January appointment, we have 2 new members coming on to council. And so I think that this is not something that is so vast that they can't participate in that conversation. And so it would make sense to me, knowing that we're moving forward and that this would be a conversation of the new term of the tax collector under kind of some new council members, that we would table this until January and then have that conversation in January, unless there's objection from council members. Without hearing any, then I think that, and Mr. Solicitor, is that acceptable, by the way? Just making sure I'm on the right track here.
That is totally acceptable and even recommended.
All right, I like recommended, right? It tells me I'm not going as far astray as I want to. But perfect. And that will again allow for the decision to be made by the council that will be dealing with whatever decision is made. So all the better. All right. That moves us on though to the reappointment for Jordan Tax Services for the delinquent tax collector. Obviously we are moving to, they've been our delinquent tax collector before. There was some, what's the word I want to use, kerfuffle. Let me go with kerfuffle today. And so now they will be, unless there is some objection, we'll return to them being our delinquent tax collector again. There's been a bit of a mishmash about how the tax collection is taking place and what services were going to be used for what. And we'll have some of that conversation for our new members, in January. But I don't see an issue with the appointment of the as Jordan is our delinquent tax collector at this, coming up the next meeting. Any discussion on Jordan? I looked at Gavin. I don't see him shaking his head at me, so we're good. It's a long agenda, I tell you, people. It's a long agenda today. We're gonna crank through it. So this moves us to the discussion of the proposed resolution in implementing mandatory vaccination policy for all borough employees and new hires. So for council, again, we did issue our proposed language with regard to the policy, both to our borough employees all across the board and for new hires. I think it's a solid policy. I think it's an important policy. I don't want to get too much into the kind of union discussion, so I'm going to leave that aside. But I think the policy itself, and particularly for our management space and for our other employees, is essential. We are, to me, I know everybody wants to get back in person. Everybody's asking, when can we get back in person? Everybody thought, I think that everybody was vaccinated at the, I know members of the public had made statements that they believed that everyone was vaccinated here at the Borough building, which was not the case, is not the case. And so to me, in the interest of the public, everyone should be vaccinated who is at the Borough building. And it makes it a heck of a lot easier to go a heck of a lot faster to open up our doors again. So that's my comment on that. I don't know if everyone's had a chance to review the policy. I don't know if anybody has any other comments beyond that. Okay, well then the hope then is that we will get that moved forward. I know I'm relying highly on our ever so skilled solicitor for assistance through this. See how kind I am after an Arsenal loss? Yeah, after a bit of humiliation makes me nice. But I think that's something that I really hope we can get done and get done well. Which brings us again to the timeline about reopening the Borough building. There's been much discussion about this amongst council for quite some time. And much like everything else, we're trying to do this in a way that maintains safety. One thing I will say kind of really, really quickly to the rest of council in particular, but for everyone to hear from my vantage point, I'll allow anybody else on council obviously to speak. I normally don't speak first, but this has been something that has been a long conversation. I am primarily concerned with the health, safety, and welfare of our residents and ourselves. Full stop. I don't care what anybody else does in any of the borough. I don't care what anybody else does in another state. I only care about making sure that we are safe. And we meaning not just me and the other council members, but we as the residents of Churchill. So we watch what's happening with COVID to make the decision. And there was a point, quite frankly, that I thought we were going to be really good to reopen, and then there was another wave. And so, we're watching right now, quite frankly, as this Omicron thing kind of hits the gate, and trying to make decisions. Initially coming into this, we had really discussed about the first of the year. If things stay as is, I'm still open to that, but I will, my eyes are open on this. And I personally am not going to try and make decisions without knowing what's happening in our community. So I will turn it over for others to have discussion to that point. Kevin, first one.
I just want to add, I agree, Jay. We definitely have to take a look at how this goes in the coming weeks, but I think it is important to open the council meetings up as soon as it can be safely done, as well as the Jaeger room. That's my comment. I think we really have to look hard to make sure to get these facilities back open.
Yeah, I agree with you. And, quite frankly, I've heard a lot of comment from what I'll call friend and foe alike on the desire for more so the Jaeger room, quite frankly, but for the desire to be opened up. And to me, it's an all or nothing kind of scenario to me. So, but I do agree with you. Diane, you were going to speak. My apologies, I cut you.
And to Kevin's point, I mean, I still think we also need to offer a hybrid option, because there are a lot of people that still, don't feel safe. And we still want those people to be able to participate some way, somehow with us.
Yeah, and Valerie, to your point,
Yeah.
I don't see a point that we ever want to go away from a hybrid option. I think that the plus of this, if we can find a kind of silver lining in this space, right? It's that we found a way to have even better communication, right? Where everyone struggles with communication. We all talk about struggling with communication. We've never had this many people in meetings ever in the 11 years that I've been there, except for when we had the meeting about culling the deer, right? And I'm talking about before the ramp up about development, before all that. As soon as we went to an online forum, right, the number of attendees, tripled overnight. This is 10 times what we get. Now I understand there's other factors involved, but I'm just saying, before it was just general attendance. The general attendance used to be 4 to 5 people per meeting, right? And one of them was normally like a Boy Scout who had to come for to get a badge, right? Like we've all been there. So I don't care what happens moving forward. If we're completely open and COVID is gone, if all goes well or something like that, we're staying with some online forum to make sure that people have access. And I think that there are folks who can't physically come here, right? Who want to participate, and they don't have to speak. They just want to hear, and the idea of trying to get rid of this would be an idea of trying to close government from its own people. So I completely agree with you. Other comments from folks?
Yeah, I thought Matt might want to go first, but I would just say I will be the person to say, last summer we were under a lot of pressure to have in-person meetings. And within weeks, we had the Delta virus attacking us, and the rates of infection and hospitalization went up very dramatically. Now we're facing a new variant, and we don't know yet a lot about it, but my word is going to be caution. And I think that it is very important for us to be realistic about what can happen here and how quickly it can happen. So I just want to say that I will be maybe the voice at the table who's being more cautious, because I think history should teach us that we better be.
Duly noted. Matt, you had a comment?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I tend to agree that I think, start of the new year, it's time. I know one of the major concerns we had discussed internally was opening up before the vaccine was available to younger folks, and that being a problem if people took it back to their families, et cetera. Now that that's happened, I think if everyone's fully vaccinated, which I absolutely recommend, and I am, that most of the studies say it's pretty well controlled, and certainly if we see disturbing data, we'll need to reconsider. But generally speaking, for those that are vaccinated, it isn't as much, it isn't much more of a normal risk than, say, driving in a car. So it's probably time to look at that.
Yeah, and I tend to agree, and I think that we all have tended to agree, particularly on the space of having kind of all family members fully vaccinated. But to be quite honest, not all family members are fully vaccinated at this time, right? I was certainly super hot at someone who told me that I should open up and that I didn't care about my own children, because I wasn't willing to open up and have conversations because she wasn't vaccinated. I wasn't gonna have people come near me who didn't know their vaccination status. But my daughter was over 5. And so now, she's had her second shot, and, on the 14th, she will be, 2 weeks out from her second shot, and I'm feeling real good. But that's my daughter's over 5. Not everybody's kids are over that age group. So I don't want to be selfish in my thinking. I want to be realistic in my thinking, but I also respect what you're saying. And I think that we are trying to come up with the way that allows for people in a safe way. And I think it's important that we get there. There's a good amount of vaccination. I think we're in a good space. I do want to see our staffs fully vaccinated. I think all people who work for the borough, so that if you're going to come in contact with a borough employee, and I don't want to talk about the who's what, but I'm comfortable with the folks who are with me today. But I do think that everybody who is a borough employee should be fully vaccinated, so that if you're in contact with them, you're in contact with somebody who who's had the vaccine as well. And that to me is one of the things that maybe, you know, we need to have a conversation about as we try and figure out how to reopen. Because I don't want to be held up by that, but that's the kind of thing that would hold it up for me. Because I don't want to put members of our public in contact with folks who are not vaccinated. But that's a whole other conversation that we're gonna work through, as you saw on the agenda. And we're gonna come back next week and hopefully have answers that allow us to move forward with that as well. So I agree with you there. Any other discussion on timeline? Right now, it sounds like we're headed towards the first, you know, after the first of the year, you know, in January, as we get information on the Omicron variant, which we should have by then, it should give us a real good indication. Assuming that the Omicron variant has that the vaccination has resistance to that variant, I don't see personally it being a problem at that point. But I think we'll have more conversations before then to make sure that we're there. And I cough as I say that. So if there isn't any other discussion on that, I think there's a couple. I'll move us to the council comments before I make kind of comment on quasi judicial deliberation. Then I'll close that out with that. So I don't know if any council or staff had additional comments or discussion items that they wanted to bring up, essentially the new business space or kind of happy, joy space.
I don't have any comments. I
Um,
know unusual.
I would just like to say that I'd like to offer our condolences to our mayor who just lost his dear mother, and it's really something for you to show up to tonight, Paul. Thank you very much.
I certainly appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for stating that, Diana. It was I think we all share that space. Other folks for comments?
So one thing I wanted to bring up is I know at some point a long time ago, we had talked about borough social media presence and policy. And, you know, I know that there was, I think it got referred to a subcommittee, but I haven't heard about that in a while. So I'd like to bring that back up for a future workshop to kind of work on our strategy for that. And I think there's effective communications, you know, that we can be connecting with the residents and with our community that we're not engaging right now.
I completely agree. In fact, I would argue that as we look at the reorg, that's something that may warrant more of a committee status on its own space, because there is so much that really can and needs to be done. And so I think that may be a strategy coming into the reorg that at least I've been thinking about. So very strong point. I agree with the point without a doubt. Mr. Mayor. I got you. As soon as you unmute, I got you.
I got. You know, I forgot to mention this. I had talked with Alex earlier about some residents have been asking me if there would be an additional leaf pickup. We had the last one last week. And the leaves were a little bit late falling down. And if we do have another one, if we could put that blast out to residents to let them know if and when that would be.
Alex, what did we
And
say?
I did follow up with Ralph, and my understanding and you might be able to correct me, was to do that would require Waste Management to make another round, which we would per contract have to eat the cost. And I had a hard time with that because that's something that should be worked into the contract. And if we're not happy with the number of dates and the timing of those dates, we need to work on that. So, you know, I do understand that the leaves have fallen later, but to be honest with you, I would rather people compost their leaves and put them in the backyard than the borough have to incur a whole nother separate cost. But I didn't realize that. My understanding was it was a contractual issue that we had to pay. And I don't want to quote the number, but it was on us, not on the residents.
Yeah, $1,639. So $1,600 to have them come back out for one round.
pickup.
One comment I would add though is I think it's probably needed because if we're done, if it's over, I was driving up my street tonight and it's trash night on my street and Henley. And there's probably 150 leaf bags between 10 properties that are out today. So I don't know what's going to
that's why we
happen to
advertise
those.
those days.
Alex, hold on one second, Alex. So Matt, I think you make a very good point. This is a decision in terms of one that I'd like to hear from council on. We understand that there's a cost involved, right? Matt has brought up the point that there are a lot of residents who have a lot of bags out now because of the late drop of the leaves. So I guess the question for council really stands as in terms of a directive for the borough manager. Do we want to eat that cost or do we not want to eat that cost? And so I'm going to put that up for discussion for you all, and let's hear it out.
But before you
I
guys
just
get
wanna-
started, there is a leaf collection tomorrow, though,
Yeah.
There's one more, right?
built into the contract.
And the concern is, just one concern is we have to be really clear about what it is and what it isn't, because if the leaf bags are out there for a longer than period of time, they're not able to pick them up. You have to be really careful how you do this. I'm not saying you can't, but yeah, they do have the date, and that's why you're seeing them.
Well, they've got tomorrow's their pickup. I recognize that.
I mean, I'll say I didn't know that. So I appreciate that clarification. That's what I was trying to understand.
Because most folks on my street have them out and ready to go. The question remains, do you feel that because of the late drop that people don't have their leaves in order, right? And that we're going to have a delayed space that requires an additional pickup?
Well, I'm also like Matt, I was under the understanding that we had the last one because I compost my leaves. So I don't watch when that is. So, and there are a number of bags out now. If there's a leaf pickup tomorrow, I don't see any reason that we would need to extend it because they are mostly done. I thought that they're out now and we weren't going to have another pickup, but I stand corrected.
So
Thank
so
you.
we feel good then.
I feel better.
Hey, Alex, I cut you off only because I didn't want to get you into the compost argument with the plus and minus compost folks. So I wasn't going to let you jump your feet in there so that somebody can set them on fire for you.
I think I agree with what Mayor Paul said. The only thing I'd say is I haven't been paying attention. Fortunately, I live on the side of a big hill and I can throw them off the side of my hill. So, it's pretty nice from that standpoint. I don't have to bag any of them, but I don't recall seeing the last time that was maybe like done, Swift Reach. We should probably think for next year about doing a Swift Reach or something saying, hey, don't forget the last leaf pickup is this week.
To your prior point, in the space of communication, those are things that if we have the committee the way that we need it, there's a lot being asked of the staff, and so these things, from time to time, it's not on them. I think we can look at that in terms of that committee moving forward to help them with that.
Right.
So I agree with you, and I think it's something that we can be better at for them.
Just let me say quickly that I've been around long enough to remember how reliable our borough pickup of leaves was. And the next time we negotiate a contract, I would really like to look at whether it makes sense for within our own borough for us to develop a way for people to come around who are connected with us and not Waste Management to determine when should be the last time to pick up leaves. And because part of the problem is people put their leaves out in the middle of the week, and by the time the leaf pickup comes, the paper bags are disintegrated and the leaves are all over the place. So I just want to make that note when we're looking at this contract. Let's see if we can't get back to some kind of a borough collection of leaves.
So I was almost about to say I've been around long enough to remember, but I didn't. I agree with you. Good point. Point well made. Point well made. Anything else on that space?
Thank you for talking about that.
No. So I think we're good there then, and that's why we have the discussion, right?
Right.
Otherwise, we don't know. Any other kind of comments from folks? My last comments, I got two just before we roll out. The first one being that we are going to head back into kind of quasi judicial deliberation over the distribution center and conditional use application. We've done so on the 18th, 23rd, and 30th so far, and now we will do so again tonight. My second point being that yesterday was the last night of Hanukkah, and so a kind of belated happy Hanukkah to all those like myself who are rolling the dreidel. I'm brutal in my dreidel game. I will let you know right now. I give no shelter to anyone, including my daughter. We call it trash talking dreidel. So I hope everybody who celebrates Hanukkah had a happy Hanukkah, and as we move forward, that we have Merry Christmas and other happy holidays as they come to us. So that being the case, we will be moving, as I said, into quasi judicial. So I will entertain to adjourn.
So moved.
Can I get a second? Game, set, match. Thank you all very much. Hope everyone has a pleasant evening.